I really need to go. I'm late.
Get out before I pull you out.
What reasonable suspicion do you have? I'm an attorney. This is being recorded.
I don't care. You're getting out. You're under arrest for resisting.
Resist anything. I question the legal basis. That's
Shut
your
your
most
mouth.
expensive mistake?
Yeah, right.
The dashcam footage starts at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon in Riverside, a quiet suburb west of Metropolis. You can see a silver sedan traveling eastbound on Highway 30. The driver is maintaining a steady speed in the right lane. Traffic is moderate. The weather is clear. Nothing about the vehicle or its operation suggests any violation. Then a patrol car pulls out from a side street and accelerates behind the sedan. Lights come on. The sedan signals immediately and pulls into a parking lot. It stops in a well-lit area near the entrance. Textbook traffic stop compliance. What the officer who's about to walk up to that sedan doesn't know is that the woman behind the wheel isn't nervous about traffic tickets. She's a civil rights attorney who spent 12 years suing law enforcement agencies for constitutional violations. She's won 31 cases and lost 4. She's cost municipalities over $8 million in settlements. She knows traffic stop law better than most trainers. She's testified as an expert witness in federal court about Fourth Amendment violations, and in the next 14 minutes, this officer is going to give her the cleanest case of her career by escalating a questionable traffic stop into an unlawful arrest that's going to cost the city $3.2 million and end with criminal charges. But right now, Officer Marcus Reed is just walking up to a car completely unaware he's about to arrest someone who makes a living destroying officers' qualified immunity defenses. Elena Vargas is 39 years old, and she's been making bad cops uncomfortable since she passed the bar at 27. She grew up in Steelton, watching her father get pulled over repeatedly for driving suspiciously in their own neighborhood. She watched him comply perfectly every time, watched him keep his hands visible, watched him answer every question politely, watched him get searched anyway. By the time she was 16, she'd seen her father pulled over 23 times. Never once received a ticket, just stopped, questioned, searched, released, every time for matching a description or looking suspicious, or reasons officers couldn't quite articulate when pressed. That experience pointed Elena toward law school the way trauma points some people toward therapy. She went to State University for undergrad, then Elite Law School, where she wrote a law review article about qualified immunity that got cited in a Second Circuit opinion. After graduation, she could have gone to any big firm. Instead, she joined a small civil rights practice, making $52,000 a year, representing people who've been beaten, tased, arrested, or shot by police without justification. She spent 5 years learning how to build cases against cops who thought the badge made them untouchable. Depositions that trapped officers in lies, discovery requests that uncovered patterns, expert witnesses who explained to juries why certain police tactics violate constitutional rights. At 32, she started her own practice specializing exclusively in police misconduct. In 7 years, she's represented 63 clients, won 31 cases through settlement or verdict, lost 4 at trial, with 32 still pending. Her win rate is exceptional because she only takes cases where the facts are strong and the constitutional violations are clear. She turns down 10 cases for every one she accepts. When she takes a case, it's because she knows she can win. And when she wins, she makes sure it costs enough that departments pay attention. That Tuesday afternoon, Elena is driving home from a deposition in Metropolis. She took Highway 30 through Riverside because it's faster than the interstate. She's thinking about the case she just worked on, reviewing in her head whether the police chief's testimony gave them what they needed. She's not thinking about speed. She's using cruise control set at 33 and a 35 zone because she knows exactly how police fund their budgets in suburban towns. At 4:47 p.m., she passes through Riverside on Highway 30. Her dashcam is running because she installed one 3 years ago after representing a client who would have lost his case without video evidence. The dashcam shows her speedometer at 33 miles per hour, steady. She hasn't touched the accelerator in 2 minutes. Then lights appear in her rearview mirror. She signals, pulls into the parking lot of a shopping center, stops in a well-lit area with clear camera sight lines. She's done this before. She knows where to stop, how to position her car, where cameras are likely to be. She puts both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Engine running, waiting. Officer Marcus Reed approaches from behind. He's 34, with 9 years on the force. He clocked Elena at what his radar showed as 47 in a 35. His radar gun is calibrated, or at least it was supposed to be calibrated last month. He's written 247 tickets this year, which puts him in the top 5 for the department. The department doesn't have quotas officially, but everyone knows the officers who write the most tickets get the best shifts and first pick for overtime. Reed gets to the window. Elena has it already rolled down, both hands visible on the wheel. "Good afternoon, officer." Reed doesn't return the greeting. License and registration. You were doing 47 and a 35. Elena keeps her voice calm. Officer, I don't believe I was speeding. I have my speedometer right here showing I was doing 33. She gestures carefully toward the dash where her speedometer is clearly visible. Needle at 33. Reed's face hardens. Are you telling me I'm wrong? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying there's a discrepancy between what your radar showed and what my speedometer shows. Can we verify the speed before you write the ticket? My car has a dash cam that recorded my speed the entire drive. Most officers, when told there's video evidence contradicting their radar reading, would pause, would consider that radar guns can malfunction or get bad readings from other vehicles, would verify before writing a ticket that might not hold up in court. Reed doesn't pause. You want to argue with me? Step out of the vehicle. Elena feels the situation shifting. Step out for questioning a traffic stop. Officer, what's your name and badge number? You don't get to ask me questions. You get to do what I tell you. Out of the car. Elena's training kicks in here. She's testified about this exact scenario in court. Officers escalating traffic stops when questioned, using officer safety as pretext for searches or arrests when drivers assert rights. I'm not getting out of my car without knowing what law I violated. I have a right to know why I'm being detained. Reed's hand moves to his belt near his taser. You want to know your rights? Here's a right. You have the right to shut your mouth and do what I say. Now get out before I pull you out. Have you ever had someone tell you to stop asking questions and just obey, even though you knew they were wrong and you were right? Drop a comment, because what happens next is a masterclass in what not to do during a traffic stop. Elena makes a decision. She's going to identify herself and see if this cop has enough sense to back down before he violates her constitutional rights in ways that are going to be very expensive for his city. Officer, my name is Elena Vargas. I'm an attorney specializing in police misconduct, and everything you're saying right now is being recorded on multiple cameras. So, I'll ask one more time. What reasonable suspicion do you have for ordering me out of my vehicle? Most officers, when told they're about to arrest a civil rights attorney who's recording everything, would stop, would call a supervisor, would recognize this is about to go very badly. Reed doesn't stop. Pride or stubbornness or just the momentum of having already committed to this course of action pushes him forward. I don't care if you're the president, you're getting out of this car one way or another. Elena looks directly at the dash cam, making sure her face and Reed's position are both visible. Then pull me out. Do it on camera. Because when this is over, you're going to learn that some people actually do know their rights, and some people have spent their entire career making cops like you pay for violating them. Reed opens the door, grabs Elena's arm, pulls her out of the vehicle. She doesn't resist, but she doesn't help either, making him do all the work while her dash cam records everything. He spins her around, pushes her against the car, pulls her arms behind her back, handcuffs close around her wrists. You're under arrest for resisting a lawful order. Elena's voice stays level despite the handcuffs in the position. I didn't resist anything. I questioned the legal basis for your order. That's not resisting. That's exercising my First Amendment right to ask questions. And you just arrested me without probable cause, which is a Fourth Amendment violation. Officer Reed, I can see your name tag now. You just made the most expensive mistake of your career. Reed walks her to his patrol car, puts her in the back seat, sits in the front, and starts writing the arrest report. Elena sits calmly, cataloging everything for the lawsuit she's already building in her head. Unlawful stop based on incorrect radar reading. Unlawful order to exit vehicle without reasonable suspicion. Unlawful arrest for questioning the stop. Fourth Amendment violations stacked on Fourth Amendment violations. After 20 minutes, a supervisor arrives. Sergeant Maria Santos, 43, with 18 years on the force. She talks to Reed, reads his report, walks to the patrol car, and looks at Elena through the window. Elena looks back at her